Okay, 7.3, the objective for today is students will be able to compare and contrast the major theories of emotion. So emotion is combined of 3 parts. The physiological arousal, which might be your heart pounding. The expressive behaviors, which would be something like a quickened pace. And consciously experienced thoughts. So what are you mentally processing? What is going through your mind? There are 3 major theories of emotion that we're going to talk about in succession. The first being the James Lange theory of emotion. And James Lange said that everything happened step by step, not all at the same time. So for example, if there was an event of a car coming towards you, right? He would say the first thing is going to be your arousal. This would be your autonomic nervous system. So your sympathetic nervous system specifically. So your heart may be pounding. Then your body interprets that. What does this mean? For you to then feel the emotion, which would be fear. So the important part of James Lange is that it happens one at a time. Nothing happens at the same time. Now, there are some critics of this theory and the fact that we don't necessarily sit and think as your heart is pounding that you have a fear. So the second theory is the Cannon-Bard theory. Cannon-Bard says that, again, the same event, you have a car coming towards you. 2 things happen at the exact same time. You're going to have your arousal. So again, the sympathetic nervous system, which might be your heart pounding. And at the same time, you realize your emotion, which would be fear. So in this case, there is no interpretation. It just happens. The third theory is what we call the Schachter-Singer 2-factor theory. Now, one thing that I want you to go ahead and fix is that arousal and cognitive labels happen at the same time. So there should be a plus sign. These things are happening at the same time. So again, you have the car coming towards you. Your arousal, which would be the sympathetic nervous system, your heart is pounding. At the same time, you are interpreting what is happening. So you are processing this information, which then leads you to your emotion, which would be fear. Now, part of the Schachter-Singer's 2-factor theory is what they call the spillover effect. And we see this happen all the time, especially in high school, where arousal from one event, so you're already aroused, will spill over into our response to the next event. So let's say there might have been an issue with a friend. You may take it out on another friend later because you are already aroused because of that arousal level. So you haven't come down from that first situation yet. So you may have a spillover into another situation that didn't have anything to do with the first. Now, there's one criticism to some of these theories, and that's what Zajonc and Ledoux came up with. And they said that there are some events where the emotional response is immediate. So there is no processing. There is no sympathetic nervous system. There doesn't go to appraisal. It will go right from the event into the emotional response. One example of this may be a fear of spiders. You don't really have to process it anymore. You know that there maybe isn't a reason to be afraid of them, but you are still scared of them. It still causes a scare. That would be one example of an automatic appraisal, is you see it and you just get afraid, even though you know cognitively there's nothing to be afraid of. Okay, detecting emotion in others. So now we know how emotion, the theories behind different emotions, how do we detect an emotion? Well, the first is what we call a display rule, and this is cultural. A cultural rule that dictates how emotion should generally be expressed when and where its expression is appropriate. One thing that is the same across all cultures is our ability to detect happiness, anger, fear, sadness, and surprise. So it's the same across all cultures. We can detect these emotions. Other emotions can be more cultural and harder to detect. One thing that we do know can be difficult is it is hard to detect false emotions. For example, a fake smile. Now, obviously, if it's a really close friend of yours, you can probably tell, but for the most people, it's hard to detect fake emotions. There is a difference between men and women when detecting emotions. Most importantly, women are going to describe themselves as more empathetic. Meaning the ability to empathize with others or understand others' emotions more so than men. The facial feedback hypothesis is it states that facial expressions can activate emotions. Try this with a little kid. Most of the time, you smile, they're gonna smile back. If you are sad, they are sad back. We know this also happens in adults, but it's more visibly available with little kids. Okay, so now that we understand the theories behind our emotions and we understand how to detect emotions, let's get a little bit into the different types of emotions. We categorize emotions into 2 dimensions. The first is the positive negative dimension. And the second is going to be low arousal, high arousal. So you can think of positive as happy, negative as sad. So if you have something positive and high arousal, we see a lot of joy, excitement maybe. if we have something that's positive, so you're happy, and low arousal, so pretty calming. It might be a pleasant relaxation. Maybe you hear a calming sound that you like, or a song that you like, or a smell that you like. Negative is going to be sad or anger. So low arousal is going to be sadness. High arousal might be that fear and that anger. We know that fear comes from your amygdala, and that it is biological. This is what keeps us alive. Now, some of you may have more fears than others, and that's okay, but fear has biologically been what's kept us alive. Anger. When you are angry, it can be very positive or cathartic. To vent. Meaning let out the anger. If you can do it in a positive way, that's even better. But even just yelling, in a healthy environment can be very catharsis to anger and can help reduce some of these negative effects of your emotions. Happiness. Feel good, do good phenomenon. If you feel good, you will probably do good. Oops, you will do good. Well-being is just your overall happiness level. So how are you doing overall? Adaptation level phenomenon is when you judge a stimulus based on previous experience. You want to go to the dance because your last dance was a lot of fun. Comparing ourselves to others. Relative deprivation says that we compare ourselves to others, and we tend to say that we are worse off compared to those who we are comparing ourselves. So a little bit of a woe is me theory. We know that happy people tend to have high self-esteem, are optimistic and outgoing, tend to have close friendships, have work that they enjoy or leisure time that they enjoy. So if they don't necessarily enjoy their work, but they're doing something in their free time that they do enjoy. And they tend to sleep well and exercise. Remember, 9.15 hours of sleep is what you guys should be getting every night. And some type of exercise that you enjoy. So whether that be taking a walk, doing yoga, or playing a sport. But exercise, we know, increases your endorphins, which leads to happiness. Equal happy, as well as healthy.